This brief tutorial shows how to create a custom or user-defined Matlab function. Now, Matlab functions, many of them are already built in to Matlab. So for example, if you have the max operator, you can put in arguments x and y, and that will return the max of those two. So let's say that x equals 5 and y is -1. Then z is going to be equal to 5. Okay, but let's say we want to create our own user-defined function. Okay, where we want to do my function, and this was going to be a function of, let's say, y. And this function, what we want to do inside this function is maybe take the square of y and then add 1. Okay, and then we want to have that returned to z. So let's go ahead and first of all just open up Matlab, and then we'll create a new script file, which is going to be our function, and then program this in and show how to call it. Okay, so when you first open up Matlab, one of the issues with functions is that script file has to be in the same directory where you're trying to, in this active directory or in your search path. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just go ahead and select this on the left to browse to the folder that I want. In this case, I'll just put it on the desktop. Okay, and so I could have something like x equals 5, y equals -1, and then if I did z equals max of x comma y, so this is the example of the built-in functions, and then I can show z, and that equals 5, or I can see it down here in the workspace. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new, we're going to go ahead and create a new function. So you come up here to the new function, and it kind of gives you a template here, but let's say we didn't start with that at all. Okay, we just had a new script file, and when we save it, one of the key things is that you need to save it with that same name. So this one's going to be called myfunction.m. Okay, so I've created my function, and then I'll just say function, and then I'll say z equals my function, and then y are my arguments. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, okay, so it shows these errors here. This might be unset, and this might be unused. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and use the value of y, and then also set the value of z. Okay, and you'll see some of those error messages go away. So we're going to, whatever the input argument is, y, we're going to then return that as z. We're going to square it, add 1, and then return it as z. Now you can put return and then end if you want. It'll also work without those two. But just for completeness, there's your first function. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if we can use this function now. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this, put it over here, and let me go ahead and just, so I can see both of them. Okay, so now I have z equals my function, and then I'm going to have y there. Okay, so I'm going to square that and then add 1, and then when I display z, then I have 2. So -1 squared is 1 plus 1 is 2. And then if I did the same thing, go ahead and hit the up arrow and put in x there. Okay, and then I can show that that's 26. Okay, now if you have multiple arguments, let's say I want to change this so I have x and y coming in, then I can say maybe x plus y squared plus 1, and then we'll return z. Okay, let me go ahead and run that again. Now I have 2 arguments, 2 inputs. If I run this, I'm going to get an error. Not enough input arguments, but if I put x and y, then, and if I just leave off the semicolon at the end, I'll see the value of z. Okay, so there is 7. Okay, now let's say I want to return, let's say I want to input it as a vector instead of two individual numbers. Okay, so I want to define w equals x and y. Okay, so that's now a vector instead of just single arguments there. Okay, so I can do that, just change my function. Let's say I just said that was w, okay, and then x equals w1 and y equals w2. Okay, so I'm just inputting it as a vector instead of two individual arguments. And then if I say that z is a function of w, okay, then I get that same answer that I had before. Now let's say I wanted to return two different things. I can still return z, or I can return like z1 and z2 like that, or I can just return z and have z be a vector as well. Okay, so let me go ahead and just say z1 is that, and then maybe z2 is going to be something different. Okay, and then when I run that again, it'll go ahead and return those two values. And if I access z1, then I'll see 7, and z2 is going to be 25. Okay, so that's how you create a custom function. You can have any number of inputs or outputs in that function as well. The key thing to remember, a lot of the things that trip people up, don't forget about this. It can't find the function if it's not in your Active Directory or in your search path as well. So you just want to make sure your function is accessible from where you're trying to call it. Okay, and just remember also that there are also built-in functions, and you can override those, but typically you don't want to do that. You want to create a custom function name that isn't going to conflict with any of the Matlab built-in functions as well. Okay, so I'll post this content, and there's others on programming. If you go to the Chemi 263 website and then scroll down to Matlab, and I'll post this information under the functions link right there on the right.